She did not cry when the man on the porch asked for work. She cried because his voice shook when he said he had nowhere else to go. Evelyn Crow held the door half open, one hand on the frame, the other pressed flat against her chest. The stranger stood taller than the door itself, hat crushed between his fingers, shoulders bowed like he expected to be turned away. He did not look dangerous. He looked desperate. And for the first time in 3 months, her grief answered someone else's. The words slipped out before she could stop them. "Why would a man like you beg?" Before that moment, Evelyn had believed loneliness was quiet. She had learned it was loud. It creaked through the wide halls of the farmhouse at night. It settled into the empty chair across from her at breakfast. It pressed into the mattress beside her, cold and heavy, where Thomas had slept for 23 years. Money filled nothing. The lawyer said she would never worry again. Red Willow Ranch was worth millions. Cattle. Mineral rights. Land as far as the eye could see. But wealth could not answer a silence. When the knock came that afternoon, it startled her so badly she nearly dropped her coffee cup. No one came out this way without calling first. The nearest neighbor was 6 miles down the dirt road. Evelyn peered through the lace curtain and felt her breath catch. The man on her porch looked carved from the land itself. Enormous. Sunburned. Dust ground into his boots. His denim shirt was faded thin at the elbows. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Green. Clear. And filled with something close to fear. She opened the door just enough to speak. "Yes?" He removed his hat immediately, like he'd been taught better once. "Ma'am, my name's Noah Briggs. I heard about your husband. I'm real sorry." The way he said it mattered. No hurry, no pity, just truth. "I was hoping," he continued, then faltered, "I was hoping you might need help." Evelyn's instinct was to close the door. She was alone, widowed. This was foolish. But Noah stood there unmoving, as if bracing for rejection he already knew was coming. "I'm not hiring," she said carefully. "I may sell the ranch." Quote. His shoulders dropped. For a split second, the giant looked unbearably small. "I understand," he said. Then, quieter, "I just had to ask." She should have ended it there. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Where have you been staying?" Noah's eyes lowered. "My truck. Sometimes the shelter in Silver Bend. When it's real cold." That did something to her. A man this strong sleeping curled up in a cab. Evelyn felt the sting behind her eyes and hated herself for it. "I'm sorry," she began. He went down on one knee. The motion was so sudden it stole the air from her lungs. The porch boards groaned under his weight. His head bowed. His hat pressed to his chest. "Please," he said hoarsely, "let me work. I'll take half wages. Room and board is enough. I don't drink. I don't fight. I just need a chance." Evelyn glanced down the empty road, heat rushing to her face. "Get up," she whispered. "Please." He scrambled to his feet at once, mortified. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." She closed her eyes. Logic shouted at her to send him away, but grief has a way of softening rules. She knew what it was to wake up without purpose, to feel the world had no use for you anymore. "There's an old bunkhouse behind the barn," she said finally. "It hasn't been used in years. You can stay a few days, while you look elsewhere." Noah stared like she'd spoken another language. "You mean it?" Quote. "I do." His breath left him in a rush. "Thank you, ma'am. I won't disappoint you." As he walked toward the barn, Evelyn watched his massive frame move with quiet control. Something stirred in her chest. Not desire. Not yet. Something closer to relief. The next morning, she woke to the sound of hammering. Evelyn crossed to the window and froze. Noah was already working the east fence line, hands sure, movements steady. By noon, a stretch that had been sagging for months stood straight again. By sunset, he'd repaired the windmill and coaxed the old water pump back to life. He worked like a man, rebuilding himself. Days passed. The ranch breathed again. And without meaning to, Evelyn found herself watching him. The way he spoke softly to the horses, the way he kept his distance from the house unless invited, the respect in every motion. Then came the guilt. Thomas had only been gone 3 months. How dare she feel anything at all? On Friday evening, Noah stood at her door again, hat in hand, eyes uncertain. "It's been a week," he said. "If you want me gone, I'll go tomorrow." Her chest tightened. "Have you found work?" He shook his head. "No references." "Why not?" He hesitated. "Because I refused someone I shouldn't have wanted me." Evelyn studied him. The truth sat heavy in the air. "Stay," she said suddenly. "I need the help." For a moment, Noah didn't breathe. Then his eyes filled and he looked away, ashamed of it. "You won't regret it," he said. But as Evelyn watched him walk back toward the bunkhouse, she knew something had already changed. She had not just offered him work. She had opened a door in herself she wasn't sure she could close again. And somewhere deep inside, she sensed that whatever was beginning between them would not be small. The ranch no longer sounded hollow in the mornings. That was the first thing Evelyn noticed. Doors opened and closed. Tools clinked. Horses shifted in their stalls. Even the air felt different, like it had remembered how to move again. She told herself it was practical relief. A working ranch needed hands. That was all. But some morning she stood at the kitchen window longer than necessary, watching Noah move through the yard. He never wasted motion. Each step had purpose. When he lifted something heavy, he did it without show, without strain, like strength was simply part of his breathing. Yet when he noticed her watching, he always stopped and tipped his head politely, eyes careful, distant, respectful. That mattered more than she expected. They spoke little at first. Short exchanges, clear instructions, quiet thanks. Evelyn kept herself busy with books and accounts, convincing herself that order could replace companionship. At night, the bunkhouse light glowed faint beyond the barn, and she found comfort knowing someone else was awake on her land. Not with her, just near. One evening, she brought him supper without thinking about it. She realized what she was doing halfway across the yard, carrying a plate of stew and cornbread wrapped in cloth. She almost turned back. Instead, she kept walking. Noah opened the bunkhouse door at her knock, surprise flashing across his face. "Ma'am." "I made too much," she said quickly. "It'll go to waste otherwise." He stepped aside at once. "Thank you." The bunkhouse was clean, spare, a narrow bed, a small table. Tools lined neatly along one wall. It looked like a man's attempt at control when life had offered little of it. They sat on the steps outside, the sky fading from blue to rust. For a while they ate in silence. "It's good," he said finally. "You didn't have to." She nodded. "I know." That became a habit. A few nights a week she brought leftovers. Sometimes they talked about the ranch, sometimes about nothing at all. Noah never asked questions that crossed a line. He listened more than he spoke, like words were something he'd learned to ration. One night, as crickets filled the dark, he said quietly, "I never stayed anywhere this long." Evelyn looked at him. "Why not?" He shrugged. "People see my size before they see me." She believed him. Over time, laughter returned to her without warning. It startled her when it happened. A small sound, quick and gone, but real. She cooked again, not just because she had to, because she wanted to. Then came the night that changed the air between them. They sat as usual, the porch light low. Noah stared out over the fields, jaw tight. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She hesitated. "Yes." "Why did you let me stay?" Quote. The question landed harder than she expected. She searched for an answer that felt safe. "Because you needed help," she said. He nodded slowly. "So did you." The truth of it stole her breath. Before she could respond, she stood. "It's late." He didn't stop her. But she felt his eyes follow her all the way back to the house, her pulse loud in her ears. After that, the distance between them felt thinner. Not crossed, just closer. Noah found reasons to work near the house. Evelyn found reasons to step outside. Neither said what both felt growing. Then the storm came. The The sky turned black by noon. Wind tore across the fields, bending grass flat. By dusk, rain fell in sheets, pounding the roof like fists. Evelyn returned from town soaked, groceries clutched to her chest. She froze when she saw Noah standing in her kitchen. Water streamed from his hair onto the floor. His shirt clung to him, dark with rain. He looked pale. "The bunkhouse roof gave out," he said. "I tried to patch it." She grabbed a towel and wrapped it around his shoulders. "You can't stay out there." "I'll be fine." "No," she said, firm now. "You'll stay here. The guest room's ready." His jaw tightened. "That's not a good idea." "Why?" He met her eyes, and everything he'd held back spilled through his voice. "Because I'm in love with you." The world went quiet. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. She had known, in glances, in pauses, in the way his voice softened when he said her name. "This can't happen," she whispered. "I know," he said quickly. "I know it's wrong. You're grieving. I work for you. People would talk. I just needed you to know." Tears burned her eyes. "You need to go." He nodded once. "I'll leave in the morning." "No," she said, breathless. "Just keep your distance." He stepped back into the rain without another word. The days after were torture. Noah worked harder than ever, silent, efficient. Gone before she woke. Back, after dark. Evelyn buried herself in ledgers, but numbers meant nothing. Every night, she watched the bunkhouse light and wondered if he was awake too. Then Patricia arrived. Her sister-in-law stepped onto the porch with sharp eyes and sharper opinions. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "Who's the brute?" Patricia asked, nodding toward Noah in the yard. "My ranch hand," Evelyn said evenly. "People are talking." Evelyn's hands clenched. "If you care about your reputation," Patricia said, "you'll send him away." That evening, Evelyn stood at the bunkhouse door, heart heavy. Noah opened it, hope flickering and dying when he saw her face. "We need to talk," she said. He listened without interruption. When she finished, he asked quietly, "Are you firing me?" Her throat closed. "Yes." The silence that followed felt endless. "I understand," he said. She turned to leave. "Wait," he said. "What if there's another way?" She faced him, confused. Noah dropped to one knee. "Marry me," he said. Her breath caught. "I love you," he continued, voice breaking. "Let me stay. Let me take care of you. I can give you a family again." The rain drummed on the roof. Evelyn stared at the giant kneeling before her, heart laid bare, and felt the world tilt. Was this madness or truth? Evelyn did not answer right away. She couldn't. Noah was still kneeling in front of her, his massive frame bent low, rainwater dripping from his hair onto the wooden floor. The sight of it made her chest ache. A man that strong should never have to beg. And yet, here he was, offering her everything he had left. "Get up," she whispered. "Not until you answer me," he said softly. His voice shook, but his eyes did not. They held steady, honest, afraid, hopeful. Her heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. "This is crazy," she said. "People will say I've lost my mind." He rose slowly, careful not to crowd her. "Let them talk. They don't know what it's like to wake up alone every day. They don't know what you've given me." She turned away, pressing her hands against the wall to steady herself. Thomas's face flashed in her mind. His laugh, his steady presence, the life they had built together. Guilt twisted sharp and fast. "I loved my husband," she said. "I still do." "I know," Noah said gently. "I'm not trying to take his place. I just want to stand beside you now." She closed her eyes. Logic told her to say no. Everything proper. Everything safe. But another voice spoke up, quiet and tired. The voice that had been lonely long before Thomas died. The voice that had come alive again these past weeks. "Stay," she said at last. "We'll talk more tomorrow." Relief washed over his face so suddenly it nearly brought her to tears. "Thank you," he whispered. That night, neither of them slept. Evelyn lay awake listening to the storm fade. replaying his words again and again. Marry me, a family, again. The thought scared her. It warmed her too. She hated herself for both. Morning came gray and calm. Noah kept his distance, working the far fence line. Evelyn watched from the window, nerves tight in her stomach. At breakfast, she made a decision. She walked to the barn. Noah looked up when he heard her steps. "Ma'am." "Evelyn," she corrected, "if we're going to talk honestly." He nodded. "Evelyn." They stood a few feet apart, the space between them heavy. "If we do this," she said, "it won't be out of desperation, or fear, or gossip." "I wouldn't want it that way," he said. "I need respect, patience, time." "You'll have it." She studied him, searching for cracks. She found none. Only sincerity. "I'm not promising love," she said. "I'll earn it," he replied. They married 2 weeks later. No flowers, no guests. A small courthouse in Silver Bend. Evelyn wore a simple blue dress. Noah borrowed a suit that fit his shoulders poorly but his heart perfectly. They signed the papers quietly. When it was done, Noah took her hand, careful and reverent, like it was something precious. Life after marriage was not loud, it was steady. Noah worked harder than ever, not because he had to, but because he wanted the ranch to thrive for both of them. He never raised his voice, never crossed a boundary. At night, he slept in the guest room, unless she invited him otherwise. That restraint mattered. It built trust where fear had lived. Then the whispers began. Patricia called first, then neighbors, friends who suddenly cared deeply about Evelyn's choices. "A man like that?" Patricia scoffed. "What could he possibly offer you?" Evelyn answered calmly, "Peace." It surprised her how true it felt. Weeks passed. Laughter returned fully this time. They shared meals, long talks by the fire. Noah told her about foster homes, about learning early to make himself small so others would feel safe. "You don't have to do that here," she said one night. "I know," he replied. "That's why I stay." The shift came quietly. One evening, Evelyn reached for his hand without thinking. He froze, then turned to her slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. That night, she chose him. Not from loneliness, from certainty. Months later, she stood in the bathroom holding a small white stick. 2 pink lines stared back at her. Her breath caught, her knees weakened. Noah found her sitting on the edge of the tub, trembling. "What's wrong?" he asked, panic flashing across his face. She held it out to him. "We're having a baby." For a moment, he didn't move. Then his knees hit the floor, and he pressed his forehead to her stomach, tears falling freely. "Thank you," he whispered, "for believing in me." Evelyn smiled through her own tears, resting her hand in his hair. The gossip stopped after that. Or maybe it didn't matter anymore. Patricia called again, voice quieter this time. "You're happy." "I am," Evelyn said simply. Noah became even more careful, more protective. He spoke to the baby every night, telling stories of the ranch, of the life they would build. Evelyn watched him from the porch, heart full. "I never thought I'd have this," he said one evening. "A family?" she asked. "A home," he replied. She leaned against him. "Neither did I." As the sun dipped low and the land glowed gold, Evelyn knew this love was different, not rushed, not reckless, but chosen every day. And for the first time since she lost Thomas, the future did not feel like something to survive. It felt like something to welcome. Pregnancy slowed time in a way Evelyn had forgotten. Days felt longer. Nights felt deeper. Her body changed gently at first, a tenderness in the mornings, a quiet fatigue that came and went. Noah noticed everything before she said a word. He carried more, lifted less for her, watched her walk like the ground itself might betray her. "You don't have to hover," she told him once, trying to smile. "I know," he said, "but let me." She did. Their life settled into a rhythm that felt earned. Breakfast together, work apart. Evenings shared. Noah spoke to her belly as if the child could already hear him. He told stories about the horses, about the creek, about how he'd make sure nothing ever hurt them if he could help it. Evelyn listened from the doorway, heart tight with wonder. Not everyone shared her peace. The town did not forget as quickly as she hoped. She felt the looks when she went into Silver Bend, the pauses in conversation, the way eyes lingered on Noah's sighs, then flicked to her hand resting protectively on her stomach. One afternoon, outside the mercantile, a woman she barely knew said it out loud. "Brave choice," the woman said thinly, "letting a man like that raise a child." Evelyn did not raise her voice. She did not argue. "He already is," she replied. The woman had no answer. That night, Evelyn sat awake long after Noah had fallen asleep beside her. She stared at the ceiling, doubts creeping in like cold air. What if the town was right? What if love wasn't enough to shield a child from cruelty? Noah stirred and reached for her hand, half asleep. His grip was gentle, certain. "You okay?" he murmured. "Yes," she whispered, and this time it was true. The baby arrived early on a clear spring morning. Labor was long, exhausting, painful in a way that stripped everything else away. Noah never left her side. He held her hand, spoke quietly, took her pain into his eyes and stayed. When the cry finally came, sharp and alive, Evelyn sobbed with relief. "It's a boy," the midwife said. Noah laughed and cried all at once. He touched the baby's tiny fingers with awe, like he was afraid his strength might break something so small. "He's perfect," Noah whispered. Evelyn watched her husband cradle their son and felt something close inside her finally unlock. This was not the life she planned. But it was the life she was meant for. They named him Samuel. Word spread fast. The same people who had whispered before now brought casseroles, blankets, awkward smiles, some apologies, some silence. Evelyn accepted what felt sincere and ignored the rest. Patricia arrived 2 weeks later. She stood stiffly in the doorway, eyes fixed on the baby in Evelyn's arms. Noah hovered nearby, uncertain. "He's beautiful," Patricia said at last. "Yes," Evelyn replied. Patricia hesitated. "I was wrong." Evelyn nodded once. That was enough. Life with a baby reshaped everything. Sleep came in pieces. Meals were forgotten and reheated. Noah learned the art of rocking and pacing, whispering low until Samuel drifted off again. One night, exhausted, Evelyn found Noah sitting on the floor beside the crib, his head resting on his arms. "You okay?" she asked softly. He looked up, eyes wet. "I just don't want to mess this up." She knelt beside him. "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you care." Months passed. Samuel grew. The ranch thrived. Noah expanded the pastures, repaired the north barn, brought in new cattle. He built something with his hands and something with his heart. One evening, as summer settled heavy and warm, Evelyn found him standing at the fence, watching their son toddle clumsily through the grass. "I used to think strength was what scared people," Noah said quietly. "Now I think it's what protects them." Evelyn slipped her hand into his. "You were always strong. You just needed somewhere to belong." Quote. He looked at her then, eyes steady, full. "Thank you for letting me stay." She smiled. "Thank you for never leaving." As dusk fell and fireflies sparked along the fence line, Evelyn realized something simple and true. The world might judge. The past might ache. But here, on this land, with this family, love had proven itself stronger than doubt, and that was enough. The first real test came quietly. It always does. Samuel was nearly 3 when the letter arrived. It came folded tight, official and cold, stamped with a seal that did not belong on a kitchen table. Evelyn read it twice before the words made sense. An oil company wanted to buy the North Ridge. The price was staggering, enough to secure Samuel's future 10 times over, enough to leave the ranch behind and never look back. The offer came with urgency, a decision within 30 days. That night, Evelyn sat at the table long after Noah had put Samuel to bed. The letter lay between them. "They'll drill," she said. "Change the land forever." Noah didn't answer right away. He ran a hand over the wood grain, thoughtful. "It's your call." "It's ours," she corrected. He met her eyes. "Then I say no." She blinked. "Just like that?" "This place gave me a life," he said. "Gave us one. I won't sell it for money." Relief washed through her so fast it surprised her. She nodded. "Then we're agreed." The letter went unanswered. News of the refusal spread faster than Evelyn expected. Some called her foolish. Others called Noah controlling. A few said worse. Samuel was too young to understand the looks they got in town, but Evelyn did. One afternoon, at the feed store, a man laughed loud enough for her to hear. "Kid's gonna grow up just like him," the man said. "Too big, too rough." Evelyn's chest tightened. Before she could speak, Noah stepped forward, placing himself calmly between her and the man. "Say what you want about me," Noah said evenly, "but you don't talk about my son." The man backed down. The store went silent. On the drive home, Noah's hands shook on the wheel. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't want you to see that." She reached for him. "I wanted to see it. You stood up for him." Quote. That night, Evelyn lay awake thinking about the world Samuel would grow into. She could not protect him from everything, but she could give him something solid to stand on. Years passed. Samuel grew tall early, gentle, curious. He followed Noah everywhere, mimicking his movements, asking endless questions. Noah answered everyone with patience. He never raised his voice, never taught anger, only steadiness. Evelyn watched them from the porch more often than she realized. One summer evening, Samuel tripped and scraped his knee hard enough to draw blood. He didn't cry right away. He looked to Noah first. "It hurts," he said. "I know," Noah replied, kneeling. "But you're okay." Samuel nodded, breathing through it, trusting him completely. That trust mattered. Then came the accident. A horse spooked near the creek. Samuel slipped. The water ran high that season, fast and cold. Evelyn screamed. Noah didn't think. He moved. He plunged into the creek fully clothed, fighting the current, reaching Samuel just as the water dragged him under. He hauled the boy out, coughing and shaking but alive. Noah collapsed onto the bank, holding Samuel tight. Evelyn dropped to her knees beside them, sobbing. That night, as she sat between them, one arm around each, she understood something deeply. Love was not the absence of fear. It was action in the presence of it. After that, the town softened. People who had doubted Noah began to see him differently, not as a giant, not as an outsider, but as a father, a protector, a man who belonged. One evening years later, Samuel sat between them on the porch, fireflies dancing in the dark. "Dad," he asked, "how did you and Mom meet?" Noah smiled, glancing at Evelyn. "I knocked on her door and asked for work." "And she let you stay," Samuel said, pleased. "Yes," Evelyn said softly, "I did." Samuel leaned against Noah's side, content. As the night settled around them, Evelyn felt a familiar peace. The kind that came not from wealth or certainty, but from choosing the same love again and again. And she knew, with quiet confidence, that whatever storms came next, they would meet them together. Time changed the ranch in small, faithful ways. Never all at once, always enough. Samuel grew into his height slowly, like the land had taught him patience. By 14, he stood nearly as tall as Evelyn's shoulder. By 16, people began to look twice, seeing Noah in the set of his shoulders and the calm in his eyes. But what mattered most was what they did not see. They did not see fear. They saw kindness. Samuel helped neighbors without being asked. He held gates, carried feed, spoke softly to nervous horses. When people commented on his size, he smiled and stepped aside, just as Noah once had. But there was no shrinking in him, only steadiness. One evening, after a long day of work, Samuel sat at the kitchen table, unusually quiet. "You all right?" Evelyn asked. He hesitated. "Some boys in town said things." Noah looked up from his coffee but did not interrupt. "They said I don't belong there," Samuel continued. Said I should stay on the ranch where I won't scare anyone. Quote, Evelyn felt the old ache rise. Before she could speak, Noah set his cup down. Did you believe them? He asked. Samuel shook his head. No. Good, Noah said, because you belong wherever you decide to stand. Samuel nodded, absorbing it like truth meant to be kept. That night, after Samuel had gone to bed, Evelyn stood with Noah on the porch. The stars were bright. The air smelled of grass and earth. You gave him what the world never gave you, she said quietly. Noah shook his head. You did. You gave me a place to become someone worth following. Years later, when Samuel left for college, the house felt quieter again, but this time it did not ache. Evelyn and Noah had learned the difference between loneliness and space. They filled their days with work and each other, mornings together, evenings walking the fence line, silence that felt full. On their 20th anniversary, Noah brought her back to the old bunkhouse. It had been restored, clean and strong. This is where my life started, he said. Not when I was born. When you opened your door. Quote, Evelyn touched the wall, remembering the man who had stood there desperate and ashamed. You were always enough, she said. You just needed someone to see it. They stood together, hands linked, watching the sun sink low over the land that had shaped them both. When Samuel returned years later, bringing with him a woman he loved, Evelyn watched Noah become what he once thought impossible. A grandfather. His strength softened but never faded. His laughter came easier, his joy deeper. One quiet night, long after the house had gone still, Evelyn lay awake listening to Noah breathe beside her. Age had slowed him, silvered his hair, but his presence was as steady as ever. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. He turned toward her. Regret what? Choosing me. Choosing this life. Noah smiled in the dark. You saved me. Loving you was the easiest thing I ever did. Tears slipped silently down her temples. Years later, when Noah passed, it was peaceful. In his sleep. Evelyn held his hand until morning light filled the room. The ranch was quiet again, but not empty. Samuel stood beside her, strong, gentle, home. As Evelyn sat on the porch alone one evening, she felt the same breeze that had once stirred the dust when a desperate man knocked on her door. She smiled. Love had found her when she least expected it. Not loud, not perfect, but true. And it had stayed. If you felt this tale in your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Archives of the Wild West, where every story rides through the dust, the danger, and the kind of love that never dies. See you in the next tale, partner.